My name is Cristina Salcorotaru, and I teach environmental law at the Law Faculty of Transylvania University in Brașov. In this part of teaching Module 4, Waste Management on Rural Communities Waste Legislation, I will explain the connection links between international European Union and national legislation and the obligation of the local administrative and natural person in waste management. In Teaching Module 4, you can find, in addition to waste legislation, general information on waste management in rural communities and specific information on biomass waste, household waste, waste collection, treatment, and valorization. And also, you can find in this site a set of policy recommendations in this field. The correctly understand of the general legislative framework applicable in the environmental protection, we remind that the legislation that can be intervened can be at international level, so international legislation will be in the form of treaties, convention of or agreements. The second type of legislation will be European Union legislation in form of regulation, directives and decision. And the third part of legislation is naturally national legislation. Being part of the European Union, Romania has the obligation to implement and comply with the binding European Union legislation. For the national legislation, we have identified its issuers, namely the Parliament for laws, the government for ordinance. Laws and ordinances are implemented through acts issued by the government and other institutions, such as government decisions and ministerial orders. You can find more information in the document text attached with these teaching modules. Based on Directive 98 of 2008 on waste management, in Romania, Government Emergency Ordinance 92 of 2011 was developed for its transposition at the national level. Also, in your country, you must have one or more legal acts transposing this directive. Directive 98 and also the National Act contain both general regulations which are addressed to everyone and specific obligation only for certain categories of people. We have grouped the specific obligation into three categories. Specific obligation for legal entities, namely public authorities which can be national or local, commercial companies, and specific obligation for natural person authorized to carry out economic activity, and specific obligation for natural person only. All these obligations can be completed with the existing obligation in other normative acts of the same power, law, of ordinance, and can be completed with elaborated provision from other normative acts with lower power. Both the National Act and the Directive set several priorities in waste management. First of all, we have the obligation to prevent the production of waste. Secondly, if we have generated waste, we must prepare it for reuse or recycle. If reuse or recycling is not possible, we must find recovery operations such as recovery through energy production. Only if we cannot find ways to implement any of the above, we may have the adoption of disposal. To better understand its principles and obligations, the directive and the ordinance explain the meaning of some terms in their annexes. Please pay attention to these definitions. In this first part of teaching module, I will present the local public authorities' obligation regarding general waste management, regarding the activity of issuing administrative acts with effect in waste management, and regarding establishing environmental waste management policies. Also, I will present obligation regarding waste management for natural persons. Local public authorities, which are local council and mayor, must respect the obligation contained in National Reglementation, Ordinance 92 from 2021, and ensure the separate collection of waste, ensure their reuse and recovery considering the mandatory targets established at EU level per year, also must separate collection uh, takes into account the fraction glass, plastic, metals, paper or cardboard, household waste, bio waste, waste from electrical and electronic equipment, waste from construction, and more recently, hazardous waste, including from the population. For each of these categories, there is also special legislation as indicated in the figure and in the text document. The separate collection obligation is also respected by concluding contracts with specialized company. In this case, there is an obligation to establish collection target and contract performance indicators and even penalties for non-compliance. Please look into the text document attached. There are explained all these obligations and are indicated the specific article of the law. Local public authorities must also consider the imposition of environmental obligation when issuing individual administrative documents like approvals and authorizations, such as building or demolition authorization, when issuing decision of the local council regarding waste management at the locality level and establish taxes, the circular economy contribution, and so on. Also, local public authorities can enter into other types of contracts, such as asset concession contracts. For this, they must consider the obligation provided for in the Administrative Code regarding environmental protection, such as the inclusion of environmental criteria and indicators when awarding contracts. For individuals or natural persons, we have the obligation to collect waste separately in the fraction indicated in the presented figure. For each fraction in the text document related to the module, the normative acts are indicated and also the penalties when the obligation is not respected. As I said, failure to comply with legal obligation extension is sanctioned by fines or even criminal charges. Thank you for your attention, and you can find more information in the text document of the courses. Thank you.